Broadcasting from the campus of Salisbury University, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7, putting Delmarva first. It's time for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
Senator Rich Colburn, a conservative voice, leaves the Maryland State Legislature. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. 64-year-old Republican is giving up his seat to another Republican, Delegate Addy Eckert. And interestingly enough, as at least I'm told, he got into politics at an early age, speaking on behalf of John F. Kennedy, who was running for president against then Vice President Richard Nixon in 1960. Say the least, much has changed, not only nationally, but here on the Eastern Shore. He was elected to the House of Delegates and eventually won his state Senate seat in 1994, succeeding a Democrat in the district. Senator Colburn joins us in our studio to reflect on the change that he's seen and what he expects perhaps even in the next 4 years as a Republican governor. And welcome to the program.
Good to see you, Don.
So, well, let me ask you this. So,
Top of morning to you.
What does it feel like to not have constituents calling you up that you're retired, that you had this burden for decades?
Well, obviously, it feels like a tremendous burden has been lifted off my shoulders. I won't have to worry about the plight of the watermen and the farmers. And I was actually telling that to a farmer the other day, and he said, "You will," and that's true. You know,
Sure.
I love the Eastern Shore. This seal, you probably can hardly see. It's a small seal, but it's a seal of the state of Maryland, and this state has on its seal a farmer and a waterman, and we want to preserve that heritage because it's the right thing to do, and we need food and we need seafood. So, their plight will always be my concern.
Do you think you've become involved in some other activities now that you're out of office? I mean, locally or what?
Well, to be honest with you, I have a lot of irons in the fire.
Okay.
But it's all speculation at this point. Exactly what I'm going to do. I do know, for the time being, at least, I'll be town manager of a little town in Southern Caroline County, Fettlesburg. Fettlesburg, Maryland. So that's a job that pays my bills.
You're right. Well, at least it'll keep your hand in the local issues. That's for certain.
Oh yeah, it's a political.
Well, let me ask you this. So I'm going to sort of look at what the present situation looks like. We're looking at a budget deficit in the state, some $700 billion or $700 million.
$750 million.
What's so as the state goes forward, and as you kind of look at the landscape, how are we going to, you think, grapple with that kind of deficit? And how do you think we got there, first of all? How do you think we got to this deficit? Because my understanding is, I'm sort of looking at some of the history we've had. Most of it is described as being structural. We have these certain commitments that we've made. We did cut some taxes in the past, and O'Malley has certainly increased taxes. Why do you think we're where we are today?
Well, we've overregulated business. And when you overregulate business, you stifle business, stifle the economy. So therefore, I don't think Maryland's growing at the rate that other states are growing. A big problem is here on the Eastern Shore, we're still in a recession. I know that the economic experts say we're well out of the recession, but I don't think we are here on the Eastern Shore. I think we're still in a recession, as is much of the state of Maryland. We would really be hard hit, hard pressed, if not for the amount of, for instance, government jobs, because we have a lot of government jobs in Maryland, from here to Wallops Island, the complexes, different agencies in Washington, D.C., Greenbelt, Montgomery and Prince George's County. Their economies heavily depend on Washington, D.C. So, you know, it's been a downturn in the economy that I don't think we've ever recovered from, and the budget projections, the revenue stream was projected too high. So I would say that probably before the 90-day session is over, that just started 2 days ago, that it'll probably be about $1 billion. I think that's how far off the budget revenue projections were.
Because one of the things that I know that Governor-elect Hogan has talked about, obviously he wants to cut spending, but he's also talked about cutting taxes. And I know that in recent months anyway. He has said he still wants to pursue some kind of tax cuts, although he wants to tackle the spending cuts first. At this juncture, are tax cuts a viable thing to do given the deficit, or should the emphasis be on cutting spending?
Well, it would be great to do both.
Right.
Obviously, he's going to have to cut spending because there'll be 2,500 bills introduced during the 2015 session. There's only one bill that has to pass, and that's the budget bill. So the budget bill has to pass, and we have to have a balanced budget on the day that it passes.
Right.
As you've seen, it was probably $1.5 billion, and Governor O'Malley just made some cuts to get it down to a projected $750 million projected deficit for the upcoming fiscal year 2016 budget. I think that it's going to be very difficult through a Democratic-controlled General Assembly to get any real tax cuts passed. And I think if Governor-elect, soon to be Governor Hogan, is to do that, this is his one and only session to do that, the 2015 session. This will be his honeymoon session. And in 2016, you'll have a presidential election year. Again, you have a Democrat state, heavily dominated Democrat General Assembly in the House and the Senate. The Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate will be looking at the presidential election, and then the honeymoon will really be over in 2017 and 18 as they try to get a Democrat back in the governor's mansion after the 2018 election. So the honeymoon will last this 90-day session. That's going to be about it. So the rain tax you could toy with that and change the language. There has to be some kind of funding for infrastructure, for stormwater. So it's going to be difficult to get tax cuts. I actually think that we should lower the sales tax. I think that would have a greater impact, particularly here on the Eastern Shore, where we're adjacent to sales tax-free Delaware. That if you looked, when they raised the sales tax, it really hurt the economy of the Eastern Shore counties. So I think that would be an angle to take. But again, it's going to be very difficult. And I'll be surprised, quite frankly, if Governor Hogan gets any meaningful tax cuts passed. We're all hopeful that he can.
Right.
But we'll see. This is his honeymoon session, and time will tell.
So how do you see this Republican governor getting along with this heavily Democratic state legislature? I mean, we've had the same situation about 8 years ago, I guess, with Bob Ehrlich, and before that, we have to actually go back to Spiro Agnew for another Republican governor. But how do you see Hogan getting along with this this democratically dominated legislature, and how might that compare with, say, the precedent that Bob Ehrlich set in terms of how he got along with the legislature? I mean, what is that dynamic going to be like?
Well, I think Bob Ehrlich's already written an op-ed piece that said that the honeymoon won't last very long. I'm predicting and hopeful that it'll at least last a 90-day session. As Marylanders. Certainly, we love the Eastern Shore, but for the state of Maryland, we would hope it would last for 4 years, that Democrats and Republicans will work together. I'm hopeful that will happen, but political reality is that it won't. So I think that after the 90-day session, at least after 2015, when you get into the presidential politics, you'll see the complexion of that cooperation change.
Do you see any?
And again, I hope I'm wrong. But, certainly, Bob Ehrlich didn't even really have a 90-day session honeymoon. Things turned on him quickly. Now, it was great. I think you saw Lieutenant Governor Brown and Governor elect Hogan at the first day of the session together, arm in arm. That's a great indication that things are going to start off smoothly. We can only hope that they end up to be as smooth as they started on opening day.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of maybe things that they could agree on, let's say in this honeymoon session. Do you see particular accomplishments? I know that, for instance, looks like we might actually start schools a little later. We've got both certain Senator Mathias, the Ocean City Mayor Richard Meehan, who's endorsed it, and they were held a news conference with Governor-elect Hogan. So there seems to be some bipartisanship going on. Do you see any particular accomplishments or anything areas where they might get agreement on and actually come up with some real legislation there beyond the budget?
When I went to school, we always started the day after Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
You always knew when school was going to start. Now, you don't know when school starts in Caroline County or Wacomico County or Worcester County because they all have different schedules.
Right.
And certainly they emphasized, I think it was yesterday in a press conference, that this would help families spend a few more days of the summer together, and the economic impact would be beneficial, particularly to areas like Ocean City. I don't see why it can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when I went to school, we all started the day after Labor Day, and we all lived, and it didn't change the graduation rate. Seems the superintendents are vehemently against it, and
right, that's what I hear.
I don't really think that they can explain that position, other than they want to start early and end early. I guess I haven't heard a rational explanation of why it can't work the way it has before. So that's an area that you saw Peter Francho,
Mm-hmm.
one of the three most important people in the state of Maryland, because he's one of the three members of the Board of Public Works, with a news conference yesterday with Senator Mathias. I supported that when I was in the General Assembly. I think the Comptroller said he's got about 13,000 signatures. So we obviously need more areas like that. But certainly it's early in the session,
Mm-hmm.
so we're hopeful to see more bipartisan issues that will surface. And they're all going to have to pass a budget. When I was in the General Assembly, Republicans were often criticized if they voted for the budget.
Right.
And again, as I pointed out, that's the only bill that has to pass. I don't know what would be gained by delaying, spending thousands of dollars to delay the session to run over the 90-day period. So it's going to be interesting because the next four budgets will be submitted by really Governor Hogan, and Republicans will have to support the budget. It'll be interesting to see what kind of cuts are made in the House Appropriations Committee and the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee.
By the way, some have suggested, speaking of Comptroller Francho, that he may be actually a fairly strong ally for Governor-elect Hogan, because I know that Francho has been critical of some of the budgeting, expressed concern, particularly about the revenue issues. I mean, do you see them perhaps getting along more than one would expect, even though Francho obviously is a Democrat and Hogan a Republican?
Well, they certainly are agreeing on a lot of issues early. I was with both individuals when they toured Easton and Cambridge. I believe it was, I can't remember, I think it was November. They certainly get along well together. That'll be interesting to see too, because if you look, if you jump up 4 years to the 2018 gubernatorial elections here in the state of Maryland, Peter Francho would have to be considered the top, if probably the top Democratic potential gubernatorial candidate. So that'll be interesting to see over the 4-year period if that honeymoon lasts. Certainly they have gotten along fantastically well so far, and tend to be reaching out. They're doing many things together, so that's a good sign. And of course, it's very important for Governor Hogan, because Nancy Kopp is the legislature's representative. She's the treasurer. She's elected by the General Assembly to be the treasurer. She would have a more Democrat take on issues coming before the Board of Public Works. In order for you need 2 out of 3 votes. So
right.
So Larry Hogan absolutely needs the support of Peter Francho on the Board of Public Works.
By the way, how do you see the future, by the way, the new phosphorus regulations? I mean, O'Malley seems to be trying to push these things ahead fairly quickly. Obviously, though, it's going to be to Governor-elect Larry Hogan to actually do a lot of the implementation. Do you see and I know that there are a number of local delegates and state senators to the state legislature who don't want that. I'm from the Eastern Shore, and have said that they want to stop it. What do you see in terms of the PMT, in terms of those phosphorus regulations? Do you think they're going to be slowed down? Do you think they might be stopped? I mean, we're at a really sort of interesting point here where we have a chief executive who says, no, I don't think this is a good idea. But then you have a legislature, obviously, who supports it, and now you've got these new regulations sort of fast-tracking as the current governor, Martin O'Malley, is leaving office. What do you see there?
It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I certainly, as a member of the AELR committee, that's the Administrative Executive Legislative Review Committee, I was on there since probably when Governor Clendenin was governor. But I was instrumental in helping delay those regulations both times. Governor O'Malley made a pledge, and he certainly carried out on it, that before he left office, there would be phosphorus management tool regulations in place, and they are in place today. That period has run out, the 45-day comment period, so they're in effect today. Obviously, the devil's in the details. They have to be implemented, as you said. It's going to cost a lot of money when you're talking about hauling tons of chicken litter across the Bay Bridge to farms that may not want to take it. You know, when you they say there's going to be a great market on the Western Shore for the chicken manure. I don't necessarily believe that that's true, but nevertheless, my speculation is that in less than a week now, Governor Hogan will be sworn in officially, and he'll pull those regulations back to review them. So they'll be on hold, and he'll probably try to work with environmentalists. That's sometimes difficult to do with the agriculture community, who think they're doing more than their fair share, and they are. They've reached 130% of their agriculture goals as far as a bay cleanup. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any type of compromise. One big problem is that farmers have a business plan. So with a business plan, and you're basically has been directed towards nitrogen, then all of a sudden you give the farmers, the agriculture community, a new business plan. You're mandating a new plan through the regulatory process, making a law through regulation. It's difficult to swallow, and it completely changes your business plan, and would cost farmers, the agriculture community, really millions of dollars, and be very detrimental, and for the Delmarva poultry industry. And you have the two Eastern Shore of Virginia counties. You have the lower two Delaware counties primarily, and the Eastern Shore counties primarily from Kent all the way to Somerset and Worcester south. It makes it a unlevel playing field, that the counties on Maryland's Eastern Shore are going to have these phosphorus management tool regulations, and the other two states aren't going to be implementing anything like that. And of course, we all want it to be science-based, and the Secretary of Department of Agriculture in Delaware has said he has seen no science that substantiates this phosphorus management tool regulation as it's been implemented in Maryland. You also know that if these fields that are heavy laden, have a heavy count of phosphorus. If you stop putting phosphorus on them today, in 50 years, biologists have told me that the phosphorus reading will still be the same 50 years later. And of course, environmentalists will say, and they're right, that we've got to start sometime. Mm-hmm. But it's not monumental that we start this January or next January. You know, Governor O'Malley's plan did delay it, but you have to have a much more reasonable period of implementation. And again, you don't want regulations unless they're really going to clean up the bay. You don't want to have regulations just to have regulations. And the agriculture community is right when they say that the phosphorus management tool regulations puts an unfair burden on them.
Let me return to you were in the state legislature a very long time, saw a number of governors. This would have been, I think you said, the seventh governor if you stayed in.
Five.
Five, rather.
It would have been six.
It was six, okay. So, so take me back a little as to your assessment of how this, particularly this area, has related to these governors, because we've had everything. Obviously Bob Ehrlich was O'Malley's predecessor, but Donald Schaefer, Paris Glendenning. What stands out as you look back, particularly in terms of the changes of the relationship between the Eastern Shore on the one hand and the governors on the other?
Well, as far as relationships, Governor Hughes may be the last governor from the Eastern Shore. Before that, it was J. Millard Talls from Crisfield. He was a very quiet person, easy to talk to. He began the implementation of the critical areas, which certainly we know about here on the Eastern Shore,
right,
because
exactly,
it's affected Eastern Shore counties dramatically, drastically. I still see him from time to time, and I would consider him a friend. The next governor would have been William Donald Schaefer, and I think you can sum it up in some way. Sum up William Donald Schaefer up in his slogan, "Do it now." He wanted to do everything now, and sometimes that will get you in trouble. But in the long run, it is better to do things as a government official when constituents complain. If you can do it now, you should do it now. And he had a really, really dry sense of humor, and a lot of people didn't know that about William Donald Schaefer. When he got mad at you, he would write you a terse note. And I only got 3 of those, I think. The next governor would be Paris Glendenning. We had a great relationship until the hysteria that and basically he was blaming the agriculture community for the Pfiesteria outbreak in the Chesapeake Bay, and to this day it's never been proven exactly what caused that. We do know that it's in the Chesapeake Bay waters. It's in the waters of Cape Fear, at Cape Fear in North Carolina, and something triggers that outbreak. But it was never ever proven that the agriculture community caused that. And we went on different paths. He was instrumental in helping get the Hyatt to Cambridge. So and we did work together on that project. Then Bob Ehrlich, I guess the second. Since I go way back, born 1950, there was McKeldin, but I don't remember. I don't remember him in the 1950s. He was a former mayor of Baltimore City, so things have really changed in Baltimore City. But then, and I do remember Spiro Agnew, but he was only governor a couple of years,
right? For vice president, right?
And so, really, the first real governor in my lifetime was Bob Ehrlich. And obviously, it's easy to work with a Republican governor, and when you have a Republican governor, you're allowed to vote for the budget. But believe it or not, the governor that I enjoyed working with and had the greatest friendship probably with would be Governor O'Malley, and people would really find that strange and hard to believe.
Why is that?
Well, he always had an open door. We always, when we parted issues. For instance, on the oyster grounds, and they've set aside certain areas that we disagreed dramatically on where those lines are going to be drawn in the Chesapeake Bay, and we've had many disagreements. But
sure,
we always agreed to disagree, and we never really had a major argument. And probably the best example, a little short story, as you know, listeners down here are probably not real familiar with the Dover Bridge, but it's an antiquated 82-year-old bridge, and many times when it opens, you can't get it closed, and it's a safety, not just a commerce concern, it's a safety concern, because people in North Dorchester and Southern Carolina have to go across that bridge to get to Eastern Memorial Hospital. So this is during the gas tax, and I had offered several amendments. One would be to restore the highway user money to the counties and the municipalities, and made a good case for amendments to his gas tax bill in the Budget and Taxation Committee. And he called me up and he said, Rich, we're not going to build a new Dover Bridge by having bake sales. I'll never forget that. And I said, well, Governor, you're right. I said, so, because I know we're limited on time, I said, what do you want me to do? He said, you did a great job in Budget and Taxation Committee offering those amendments, but if I'd like you to just, those amendments aren't going to pass. Just don't say anything when the bill comes on the floor of the Senate. So I didn't say anything. And they're actually driving pilings today for a new Dover Bridge. So that's a quick story, and it's the best stories are true stories, I think.
I think so as well. So one of the things that struck me, particularly during the O'Malley administration, I mean, obviously we have the fiscal issues, but there was a tremendous number of, as I looked at them, social issues that he moved on, whether it's same-sex marriage, the end of the death penalty, gun control, for example.
And we were on opposite sides
exactly.
on all those issues.
I mean, it seems as if the state in those 8 years, from a social standpoint, in terms of the law now, has shifted dramatically. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that kind of shifts happen so quickly, so fast in a state. What about you? I mean, does that? I mean,
he really passed a very liberal agenda that many liberal Democrats, particularly from the Prince George's, Montgomery, Baltimore City area, really wanted to have these measures passed.
Right.
And they were accomplished. And of course, it helped that Governor O'Malley was running for vice president. And people say to me, well, how do you run for vice president? And I say, well, you run for vice president by running for president. So I think it's a pretty clear fact that he's running for vice president, possibly with a Hillary Clinton ticket, whatever. But it was key for him to push that agenda and be able to say to the Liberal Democrat Party, look what I've done in Maryland, and here on the Eastern Shore. The vast majority of our constituency disagree with all those issues.
Sure.
We think gun control should be how you grip your rifle. But the other kind of kickback on that is that it made it really a lot easier for Larry Hogan to get elected, because you couldn't really debate gay marriage when you have gay marriage in Maryland. You couldn't really debate the abolishment of the death penalty when the governor's already abolished it. You can't debate gun control when the governor has already passed one of the strongest gun control, if not the strongest gun control measures in the nation. So he took those issues off the table for Lieutenant Governor Brown. So there really wasn't, they had TV commercials, and you saw them like with a grocery cart and an AK-47 in a grocery store. But they actually, I think, turned too many people off, because nobody really thought there would be too many AK-47s in the grocery cart. Right. And gun control had already passed. So it's an interesting twist, and he took those issues off the table and helped Larry Hogan become the next governor.
Finally, looking at the state, obviously the governor-elect has next 4 years. Do you think there's a possibility that Larry Hogan might get another 4, or do you think the Democrats are going to really make a real push back? I mean, I've talked to some of the local Democrats here who've been in touch with some of the folks at the state level who say they're gearing up, they're going to change the way, because they faulted Anthony Brown for the way he carried out his campaign. Do you think that's going to be a struggle for Hogan to get reelected, or I mean, what's obviously we're looking at a crystal ball here, but what do you think?
We're looking at a big crystal ball.
Yeah,
and it's difficult to say what's going to take place this session.
Right, much less 4 years from now. Right,
much less 4 years from now. But again, it's great to have. This will be the 4th Republican governor in my lifetime, but the 2nd.
Right.
Basically, since I've been an adult, although I was in the Army, I think when Spiro Agnew became governor. But I tell people I'd like to see a Republican governor reelected. That's what I'd like to see now. and that does a lot for the Eastern Shore. We don't have to worry about onerous regulations that really hurt particularly small business here on the Eastern Shore that are the backbone of our economy. So it would mean a lot if businesses here on the Eastern Shore, businesses across the state of Maryland, could have an 8-year breathing period where they don't have to be worried about being regulated out of business. So it would mean a lot, I think, if Larry Hogan can get reelected. And I think that a lot of that will depend on how well or how poor the first session goes.
Mm. We've been speaking with former Senator Rich Colburn. He has left the state legislature, defeated obviously in your primary, and now into what a semi-retirement, I guess you're going to be, but still active, I understand. And we appreciate, by the way, you stopping by and talking to us.
Well, I'd like to do it again sometime. We can talk about the Eastern Shore versus the Western Shore and the one man, one vote. We didn't really get to touch on that.
That's true. We'll have you back for that.
Okay. Thank you, Don.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
This has been Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Chris Rank produces and is our audio engineer. Don Rush is your host. For podcasts, visit our website, delmarvapublicradio.net, or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast in iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on PAC 14. To view the schedule, visit the Daily Times or visit pac14.org.